Hey everyone, in this video I want to show you an improved version of my older dissolve effect. So in this video I will show you how to dissolve a mesh using any other static mesh. Also you can rotate the cube now, but last time you couldn't do that. So this time I have added the ability to rotate the cube like this. So you can rotate the cube, you can scale the cube however you want like this, and it should work. And also you can use any other static mesh to dissolve it. So you can use it on any mesh, and also you can use any static mesh you want like this, or you can use any other mesh. These are just the ones I made to show off the effect. So I will show you how to dissolve with this static mesh too. So here I have this capsule. I can just increase the size of the capsule, and if I just move this closer to the mannequin, you can see that it can dissolve the mannequin like this. So here we are using a capsule. You can also hide the capsule if you want. So here I have hidden the capsule, but still you can dissolve the mesh like this. And also you can dissolve the house. And you can scale it or rotate it, and it should work. And this isn't the only shape you can use. You can use any kind of shape. So I have created some shapes here, but you can practically use any static mesh for this. It doesn't really have to be these shapes. So I can use this star shape. So now here I am using a star shape, and you can see a star shape dissolve. So I can just move this inside the house like this, or move it out. We get something like this. And we can also scale it down. So we get something like this. We can now rotate this and scale it a little bit so it covers the entire house. I'm just going to rotate it like this. Okay. So now I can just rotate this. So we get some effect like this. I will also use this mesh. So here you can see that it is inside the house, and the places that are poking out will dissolve the house. So I will just try to, so I will just move it like this. And now we get something like this. And I can move it into the front, and we get this effect. So I can basically use any static mesh for this. So now here I will just use some other mesh. So if I go to the props, I can use this chair. So now we have this chair dissolving the house, and I can scale the chair up like this, or I can rotate the chair, and now we get an effect like this. So here in this material you can change a lot of parameters. So here I have this capsule shape that is being dissolved, and I can open up the instance, and here I can change a lot of parameters. So I can increase the noise, I can increase the power, so we get something like this or something like that, and change the color obviously, and also we can change the bounce, so it increases the size. I can change the bias or reduce it. I can increase the edge fall off, so we get an effect like this, and then increase the bounce or decrease it, so we get something like this. So a lot of things can be changed with this effect. And if you want to download the entire project file, you can support me on my Patreon. And for $5, you can get this project files and almost all my previous project files from there. And if you're already my patron, thank you very much for supporting me there. So to create this effect, first we need to create a material. So for that, right click, then click on material. I will call this m underscore box dissolve, and then open it up. And now here we can press and hold V and click. So we get this vector parameter. We can use this to change the base color. So name this base color and connect this to the base color. And now if I just change the color here, you can see the change in the sphere. So I will just set it to some dark color like this. And now we need to get a box mask. So box mask 3D. So this box mask 3D node will allow us to draw a 3D box onto the mesh, so we can do stuff inside it. So if I just connect this to the emissive color, and here for the location A or vector 3, we can get a world position node, and for location B, we can get actor position node. Now for bounce, we can press and hold S and click, so we get a scalar parameter, and we can call this bounce. We can change this parameter in the material instance, so we can connect this to the bounce and set this to like 100 or something like that. And now for the edge fall off, we can get another scalar parameter, and now we can call this edge fall off and connect this here. Now if we increase the bounce, so here we can see that the sphere is completely white. I will set this to a cylinder, and now I will just change the value to like 200. So here you can see we get an effect like this. We get this because we are drawing a cube onto it. If I get a plane, we can see that there is a small cube drawn on the plane. By increasing the bounce value, we can increase the size of the box. I will set this value to like 100 for now, so we get a small cube. Now if I increase the edge fall off, it will get softer. You can see that the fall off is very softer. It goes from really white to gray, then black. So we can control the fall off using the edge fall off. So now we can just reduce the size again of the bounce. So now you can see that it is drawing a box onto the plane using this actor position as center, and it is drawing onto the world position. So we can use this to dissolve the character. If you want to dissolve the character, we need to set this blend mode to masked. So in masked, if the value is 0, it won't be visible, and if the value is 1, it will be visible. So if I just connect this to the opacity mask, you can see that the black areas are invisible now. So if you want to get the opposite effect, we can just invert this using the 1 minus node. If it is a value between 0 and 1, it is like inverting those values. So now we get something like this. So there is a hole in the middle. And now we can see that if I change the bounce, we can increase the size of the hole, and we can decrease the edge fall off or increase it, and control a lot of parameters with that. So we can use this to create the dissolve effect. And now in order to get the emissive color around the edges, we can get a ler and connect this to the alpha and connect this to the emissive. Now get a vector parameter by pressing holding V and clicking, and we can call this emissive color, and now connect this to the B. So if the value is 1 into the alpha, we will get the emissive color, and if the value is 0, we will get the A value, which is 0, which will be black. Now we can give a really high red value for the emissive like this. So now you can see this edge. Now here we can just saturate this. This will clamp the values between 0 and 1, because later we will do some stuff that will maybe push the values above or below 0 and 1. So here we will get a multiply and get a scalar parameter, and we can call this bias and give value of 2 here. Now get a power node and connect this here and connect this to the alpha. Now get a scalar parameter, and we can call this power. Now here, by controlling the power and the bias, you can control the size of the edges and the intensity of the edge. So you can play around with these values to get the look you want. And here I can also change the intensity and the color using this parameter. So if I do something like this, we get something like this. Now click apply. Now we will go to the material, and we will just create a material instance and apply this to the capsule. So here, now if I open up the instance, I can increase the bounce so that the capsule will disappear like this. But we need to use a blueprint, so we can manipulate the size, shape and rotation of the box mask inside the material. So for that, we need to create a blueprint actor. So now to create the blueprint actor, right click, then blueprint class and get actor. I will call this BP box, then open it up. Then here we can add a cube. Now we need to get the location, rotation and scale of this cube into our material. In order to do that, there are few ways. The easiest way is to use a collection parameter or material parameter collection. Another way is to create like this parameters, and you can just create a dynamic material parameter instance, and with that you can just set these variables. You can only use this if you have something to connect here. So in order to get this parent, we need to have the mesh that this material is applied to. But in this video, we are not going to apply this mesh to any blueprint. To make this easy, we are going to use the collection parameter. So I will just delete this, and now we can get a collection parameter. Now right click and go to material, then material parameter collection, and now I will call this PC box data. Now open this up. Now here we need to add, first we need to add a parameter for the location. Then we need to add a parameter for the scale. This is for the bounce, so we can call this bounce. And for the rotation, we need to create three variables. So that is X, Y and C. So this X will carry the forward vector, this Y will carry the right vector, and this C will carry the up vector. So we need to get the forward, right and the up vector to have the rotation from the blueprint into the material. So here we can go to the bounce and we can type in collection parameter, and we can get location. We can connect this to the B here, and for the bounce we can have this parameter, and also we can get the collection parameter, and now we can get a multiply and connect this here and change this to bounce, and we will connect this to the multiply here. So with this we can increase the bounce independent of the mesh. So here with this bounce we are getting the bounce directly from the cube, and if you want to change it somehow, we can use the multiply with the bounce here. Now connect this to the bounce and click apply, and now go into the BP box blueprint, and here we can type in set vector parameter value and get the PC box data. Now change this to location, and here get the cube and drag and type in get world location, and for the bounce we can just duplicate this and we can just change this to bounce, and here we can drag and type in get world scale and connect this to the parameter. Here instead of a cube you can also use a box collision like this, but I am just going to use a cube for now. So click combine and now bring in the cube we made. So now you can see the bounce are really high, so we can open the material instance, and here we can decrease the bounce and we can move this in and decrease it again. So here we will just decrease it a lot, and we can change the MSE color to like a lower value like this. Now we can move this cube around, but we cannot really rotate the cube. It doesn't really work right now, but now we can scale the cube and it should work. So now for the cube we will make a special material, so it looks like a outlined mesh. If you are using a box collision, you don't really have to do this. So material M box outline, then open it up, then change the shading model to unlit and click two-sided, then change the blend mode to mask, then get a linear gradient. So this will basically create a gradient from top to bottom, so one from here and one from here like this. So if we use a cosine node with this, we will get a bar like this, a bar in the middle, and for the vertical we will get a bar like this. So if you get two of this, and now we just max these values, which means that it will get the maximum value from both sides. We get something like this, and we can reduce the size by increasing the power. So I just increase the power to like 60 or something like that, we get something like this. So now we can just connect this to the opacity mask. So we will get something like this. And now for the emesis color, we can get a vector parameter and call this color. And we can change the color to like 5. And now we can increase the power here. So we get something like this. Now click apply. Now create an instance and we can just add it to our box or our cube like this. So now we have something like that. So now we have something like this. We can reduce the color like to 1 or something like that. So it's not really very intense. So I can just increase the scale. I can really rotate it right now. We will do that next. So now we will add the rotation. So I tried a lot of methods to make the rotation happen, but I couldn't really get any of them to work. The best I had was like to get them to rotate in one axis. So like the C axis, I could rotate it in the up vector, but not in the other vectors. So I really didn't know how to make that. But luckily, I found a post on Unreal Engine forums that had a solution for this that worked. So I will try to leave a link to that forum post in the descriptions below. So how that works is that we need to press and hold one and click. So we get this constant value of 0. Now connect that to the B color. So in order for the rotation to work, we need to bring in the forward vector, the up vector and the right vector into the material. So in order to do that, first we can just subtract the location of our cube from the world location. So just subtract the location from the world location. Then if you try to connect this, we will get an error because this is a 4 vector. So in order to fix that, we can just mask this component mask and just tick B. And now here we need to dot this with the X value. So just connect this to the dot. So what a dot product does is that it takes in two vectors and it will output a value between -1 and 1. If both the vectors are pointing in the same direction, it will output a value of 1. And if they are offset from some amount, it will give a value less than 1. So it will basically tell you if both the vectors are looking at the same direction. So this dot product basically tells you if both the vectors are looking at the same direction. So we can dot this with the forward vector and we can just duplicate this. And now we can just duplicate this and connect this to Y and dot this with this one. And now we can just duplicate all of this again and change this to the C value. Now we can drag and type in make float 3. So now we will get another vector value, but here we are comparing how much this location is pointing to the forward direction, the Y direction and the C direction of the cube. So that way we can bring in the rotation from the mesh to the material. Now connect this to the A here and click apply. Now go back to the blueprint and here we can just drag in the cube and type in get forward vector and we can just duplicate this and change this to X, duplicate this again and change this to Y and duplicate this again and now change this to the C. And now here drag and type in get right vector and now drag and type in get up vector and connect this to the parameter and click compile and save. Now here we can just rotate the cube and it should work. So I will just delete this and bring in the cube again and I will increase the size. And here I can just move it like this. Here also I can go to the material and here I can tick two-sided. So the insides are visible also. So now with this one, I can just rotate it like this and it should work. I can scale in any direction. I can rotate in any direction. We can also change the outline size by increasing the power. So here with this material, you can see that there is this unwanted glow. So to fix that, we can go into the material and we can just multiply this one with the color and connect that to the MC color. So that will fix the unwanted glow. So now we get an effect like this. So now we will add the flame effect. So in order to do that, we need to get a fire texture. So we can go into the starter content and go to textures and get this fire tiled, and we can bring that into our material. Now here we can press and hold U and click, so we get this texture coordinate. Now press and hold M and click, so we get this multiply. Now connect this to the multiply and connect this to the UV. Now press and hold S and click, so we get this scalar parameter. We can call this tiling. So with this value, we can control the tiling of this texture. Now we can get a panel. Now we can get a panel by pressing and holding P and clicking. This will pan the texture in some directions, so the X and Y direction. So we can give a value 0.1 here and 0.25 in the Y direction. So it will pan the texture. If I just preview this one, you can see that the texture is moving. Now here we only need the red channel. So if I just multiply the red channel like this, it will be a black and white color or a grayscale color. So now in order to add this to the edges, I will just delete the multiply, and now I will get a subtract. And now I will get a multiply node and connect this here and set this value to like 2. So here we are increasing the 0 value to only 0. The 0 value won't change, but the 1 value will be changed to 2 because 1 times 2 is 2. And if we subtract 1 from that, the 0 value will become -1 and the 1 value will become 0.5 and the 2 value will become 1. So here we are just remapping the values from -1 to 1, and here we can subtract those remapped values from the grayscale value that I showed you later by using this subtract node. And now we can connect this value to the saturate here, and now connect this without the 1 minus, so like this, and delete the 1 minus here and click apply. So here we get something strange like this. Here you can see that the edges have this flame effect, but also the MC color is bleeding into the rest of the mesh. So in order to fix this, we can just 1 minus here, so it will only happen at the fringes. So now click apply. So now you can see that it is only happening at the fringes. So now I can move this around like this, and I have this noise effect. So here if we go to the parameter, and here I can go to the tiling and I can increase the tiling, so we get something like this. Or here I can decrease the tiling, so I get something like this. I can change the color to whatever I want. And now here I can just rotate this like this, and scale it. So now we will just drag all of this and just collapse this to a node, and we will call this dissolve box. And for the output here, we will call this emissive, and for the second output, we will call this opacity. So you can see that it's connected to the emissive color and the opacity mask. So now we will give this material the ability to dissolve any mesh. So in order to do that, if you are not on Unreal Engine 5.1, you need to enable distance field on the project files. If you are on Unreal Engine 1.5, it will be enabled automatically. So here I will just get a constant value of 1 and connect this to the opacity, and I will just remove the MC color, and I will just duplicate this so we can use this later, and I will call this dissolve static mesh, so we can use this later. So now right click and type in distance to nearest surface, and here just get a subtract node and subtract like 25 from this, and now get a divide node and divide like 15 from this. So this distance to the nearest surface node will sample the distance field values around the mesh, and it will give a value of 0 to 1 depending on the distance to the nearest surface. So with the subtract and the divide, we are just modulating that in a way that we will get a edge. So we can connect this to the MC color and click apply. And here you can see that the values are very high. It's not 0 and 1, but really high values. So that's why it is glowing like that. So in order to fix that, we can just go here and we can just saturate this value. So it will be between 0 and 1. So now you can see that every value is like 1. So here I will use a different mesh because I want to show you all the settings. So I will just delete this mesh and I will go into the shapes and bring in like another mesh like this one. And I will just scale it up. And now I will add our new material to it. So you can see that it is black right now. So here, if I go to the material and connect this to the base color and click apply, you can see that it is fully black. So here I will just connect this to the base color without any of that and click apply. Here you can see that there are these black lines on it. And if I just move it down, you can see that there is black color around the ground. And the portion inside the ground is completely black. So here, these black lines around the mesh is because of the self shadowing from the distance field. So this mesh also have a distance field of itself. We need to turn that off so we can get rid of this artifacts. So here we can type in distance field and just untick affect distance field lighting. So now we get something like this. So here if you go, here you can see that it is black. So the intersection areas are black, but the rest is like really glowing. So we can just disconnect the base color like this and click apply. So now we have this black color around the intersections and the white color otherwise. So if I just get another mesh like this, and if I scale this up, and if I try to bring this in like this, here you can see that the capsule mesh is having a black outline on the cylinder depending on the shape. And if I just bring this in, I can just have this black color around this. So with this one, so you can just connect this to the opacity and click apply. And here you can see that it is cutting the mesh from the shape. But here also you can see that the other meshes are also cutting the mesh like the ground. So here if I just get a lerp and connect this here and connect this to the emissive and get a vector parameter, and I will call this color, and we can change this value to like a red color. Here if I just 1 minus this value, it will only appear around the edges. So here we have some unwanted issues. So here in this mesh, so here if I just try to dissolve it with this capsule, if I bring in another capsule, it doesn't really dissolve it. So only the capsule we want will dissolve the house. It also doesn't get dissolved by the ground. But here you can see that any mesh we bring in will dissolve it. So if that's what you want, you can just select all of this and collapse to a node and call this df dissolve, and we can do the emissive here, the opacity. So that should work. And here you can just copy this thing and you can just bring that into any material you want. So if I just open the sphere, it has a material, and if I just open the material, I can just paste this and I can connect this to the emissive, and I can change this to mask and connect that to the mask, etc. So that's really easy to transfer it between material. So we have this another one, so I will just remove that, and here you can see that everything is getting dissolved. So here you can see that another mesh won't work. So if I just bring in the mesh, it doesn't really work. So if you want this effect, we need to add this mesh inside the box. So if you add this mesh inside the box, then only the mesh inside the box will work. So if I just go here and select this and click on cube and type in visibility and click on the visibility, I can scale this thing inside the cube any way I want, like this. But if it is outside the cube, it won't work. So if it is inside the cube, it will work. So if I just bring in this thing, and if I bring in inside the cube, it should work like this. So that's what we want to do. We want to add the mesh we want to dissolve inside our cube. So in order to do that, we can go into the material again, and here we can just go into the df dissolve, and we can copy all of these, and we can go into the dissolve static mesh and connect this to the emissive, and now connect this to the opacity and go inside this one. And now here we can press Ctrl V to paste this here. So here we need to just 1 minus this one and multiply it with the box mask like this and connect it here. And here we just remove the 1 minus here, and we can do a 1 minus here and click apply. So now if I just bring in the box, it really isn't doing anything. But if I just duplicate this one, and I will call this distance field, and I will just delete this, I will bring in the box again, and here if I just open this up and go to the viewport, and we can add a mesh into this, and I will move it like this and click compile. So here it doesn't really work, so let's fix that. So now in order to fix this issue, we can just add a 1 minus here like this and click apply. So here I made a huge mistake because I was using this box which I created for the demo and not for the YouTube tutorial. So if I go to the YouTube tutorial, I'll just delete this. I'll just bring in the box, and if I just duplicate this box, and I will call this box YTDF. If I open this up, and here I can just add this capsule into this one, like into the cube, and I can just bring it down like this. And here I can just parent this capsule to the cube, and now I can bring the capsule down and click compile. And now if I just delete this one, and if I get the new capsule one like this, and here you can see that the cube is kind of dissolving it. So we can just select the cube, and here we can just select the cube and type in distance field, and we can just untick that. Or here if you just use the box collision, if you use a box collision, you don't really need to do any of that because the box collision doesn't have the distance field. So now here you can see that the capsule is kind of dissolving. And now if I just increase the size, you can see the capsule is dissolving this one. And here I can go into the shape, and here I can go to the starter content and go to the shapes, and I can add any shape I want. So if I go here and replace the shape, you can see that it is dissolving it like this. So if this goes outside of the cube, it won't dissolve or it won't work. So we need to make sure that the cube is always covering the mesh. And here in the material, so this is the overview of the material now. So we have a 1 minus here, a 1 minus here, and like this. And now if I go into the material graph, you can see I have these 3 nodes. You can just copy this, and you can just go into the mannequin and just open this up and open up the material and the material again. And then you can just paste it here, and you can connect this to the emissive and the opacity mask, and it should work on any mesh. And here if you want to hide this mesh, you can select the mesh and type in pass, and here type in render in main pass and click this and untick this also, so it is hidden. If I just untick this and go to visibility, and here if I just make this false, it will disappear because the mesh has to be visible in order for this to work. So I have to go to the main pass and just disable that from the main pass, so it won't be visible. And here you can just rotate the mesh in any direction you want, and here you can see the ground is not affecting this one. It will only affect it if it is inside the cube. And here you can see that no other mesh is affecting this. or the ground. So yeah, that's it for the tutorial guys. Thank you very much for watching. And if you want to download the entire project file, you can support me on my Patreon.